Hey, welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I get the chance to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our community. What did they do to get started? And what are they doing to stay there? And oh my goodness, here we are. We're counting down to the HR Southwest Conference as I'm highlighting speakers, talking with them about their topics and what's coming up for the HR Southwest Conference coming up in October. And I have a special guest for you today as I'm getting to talk to Mallory Herrin. Mallory, well, she's the CEO and principal at HerrinHR. She's also an author of the book Intentional HR. You might have that copy. If you don't, you want to pick a copy up. But most importantly, Mallory is speaking at this year's HR Southwest Conference. And Mallory, I'm so excited to have you on the show. How you doing?
I'm doing so good. Thank you so much for having me, Bruce. I'm excited to be here.
So we go way back, but I was actually thinking about the last time I saw you. I always like to reflect with my guests as I kick off the show. And for you, it was at the Texas SHRM Student Games Conference that was hosted here in Dallas, Texas. And do you remember that? What'd you think about that event?
Yes. Oh, I enjoyed it so much. I was able to judge for the second year in a row, and it is such a joy to see the students coming up and their knowledge and putting it to use and watching them network and get all the education that they can. It warms my heart, truly.
I love it. And I love your spirit for helping, especially in particular, students as you continue to volunteer, not just the student games, but you also volunteer for the conference with the students as well. Is that correct?
Yes. So within my volunteer work with Dallas HR, I'm the director-elect for the Student Engagement Committee, and we put together a lot of fantastic stuff for the students for HR Southwest Conference. So we have specific sessions for them to help them navigate the conference. Many of them, it's their first time to attend. We help recommend different educational sessions they might want to go to. Last year, we even did a little bit of a lunch and learn with them where we had various HR professionals sit in a reserved section with them so they could just pick their brains and talk about different topics within HR. It's really cool.
I love it. It makes them feel like a VIP, and I just love their energy. You can tell when the students are around the conference, and so excited about that. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the HR Southwest Conference. We're going to talk about you speaking and your topic. But before we do that, I would love to get to know Mallory and share the Mallory Herrin story. Like, where did you grow up, and how in the world did you get into leadership and serving the HR community?
Sure, it's weird. The where I grew up part isn't weird. I'm from DFW, Fort Worth originally. Primarily grew up in a suburb outside of Fort Worth. I had a very untraditional upbringing and found myself homeless and on my own prior to completing high school. But I did, and went straight into the workforce due to my situation, attending college right after school. Although I dreamed of it, just wasn't feasible for me. And I fell into HR. It was very difficult to get a job as someone that was unhoused, but I was very lucky to get a role as a receptionist at a small company in a retail space in Fort Worth. And the owner of the organization knew my story and kind of what I'd grown up in and what I'd been around, and gave me this fabulous opportunity. And so I worked really, really hard. I didn't want to squander that opportunity. And he saw my potential. And within 3 months, promoted me into the accounting department. So I was doing accounts payable and receivable. And then within another few months, he fired his entire accounting and HR team and then said, guess what, Mallory, you work really hard. I'm going to start paying for you to go to school, and you're going to take over, hire a team, and you're going to learn payroll and how to manage a team and how to manage HR. And that's how I fell into it.
Well, I think that's a common thread. A lot of times we know we want to we want to do great things. We just don't know what that path looks like. I shared in my book, Life in the Leadership Lane, that it's easier to look back and see your success than it is to look forward and see what it's going to take to have that success is just incredibly difficult. I appreciate you sharing that, especially a little bit about your personal side, because I think that I've shared this before. I've heard guests share this, but the more vulnerable we can be, the deeper connections we can have. And I know that there's probably some people out there that have, I don't know, maybe they don't have that story, but they have a similar story. And by hearing you share that, it makes them, it inspires them to say, hey, you know what, maybe I'm going to share my story, maybe not with everyone, but I'm going to share it with someone. And I love that. Well, let's talk about the HR Southwest Conference. I mean, it's coming up here in October the 15th through the 18th at the Fort Worth Convention Center. I'm going to put all the links in the show notes. I've been asking, so I've had a few guests on for the past few weeks, and I would love to ask you as well, when you hear learn, network, and grow, like what does that mean to you?
Oh man, it means the culmination of the connection that we need as HR professionals. It can be a very lonely island-like experience at times, as well as the continuing education that we need, because there's so much change constantly, not only just within business and industry, but to the regulatory landscape. And it's so important to invest in your professional development and your own growth. And you can do that not only through broadening your knowledge, but also broadening your network. And
Mhm.
you get to do all of these things at HR Southwest. So it's truly the place where you can do all three of those things: learn, network, and grow.
I love that. I was actually thinking that's my everyday: learn, network, and grow. But what I was thinking about, somebody asked me, they said, hey, I see you're highlighting the HR Southwest Conference, what's that all about? And those three words are the reason why I do it. I learn from the people that I talk to. It's a great way to network and connect on a deeper level. And I grow because I get to learn your perspective and other people's perspective and how they feel about things. And I can do, and then I go share that. Like, what a gift it is to do that. I love that. And now, how long have you been part of the HR Southwest Conference? Have you spoke before?
I have, yes, I've spoken twice before. This will be
Mm,
my third year to speak,
mm.
but I've been attending for quite a while.
That's fantastic. I love that. So, okay, your session is leveraging the employee experience to retain top talent. First
Yes.
of all, I love that because anytime you talk about the employee experience, everyone's ears perk up. And when you talk about retaining talent, everyone's ears are at full attention. Talk about that.
Sure. So, and this also connects with my purpose within HR and why I do what I do as
Mm,
well. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. So, it's not a secret we have a massive talent shortage, right? And it's not projected to necessarily get any better. So, in fact, the World Economic Forum has data that's come out that says by the year 2030, $8.5 trillion in revenues are going to go unrealized due to this labor shortage. There's
wow.
and I'm going to just like fact bomb everyone at my session while also giving them tips on how to retain their talent. Reasons that we are having this labor shortage are there's multiple reasons really, but primary reasons include the worker replacement rate having declined with declining birth rates, in addition to what we would refer to as skilled labor having declined with college enrollments also declining over time. So there was really no bounce back after the 2008 recession. So we're seeing this play out. It's a huge struggle for a lot of employers to acquire new talent, right? And there's also this skilled shortage. So we have this shift on retention. And then, of course, the pandemic came and that affected it. We had the turnover tsunami, right? So now we're even more focused on retention strategies. And oh my gosh, please, please stay, everybody. So how do you do that? Well, I think that being employee centric is essential.
Mm.
So over time, the labor force has changed quite a bit. What employees want and what they need within their career, within their workforce has changed. What they expect from their employer has changed. And it doesn't mean that an employer needs to, there's this misconception that being employee centric means that I must now give into every whim and request of my employees and kind of let them run the ship. That's not what I'm saying. but it's really about understanding the employee's experience through their life cycle as an employee and implementing retention strategies throughout each step of that life cycle, including in the recruiting process before they're even an employee, in order to get them to stay.
I love that. How do you do that before you're an employee?
Oh, you leverage your employer brand.
Love
So you have to make sure that you are maintaining a consistent focus on your company culture. People talk. They go on Glassdoor, they go on Fishbowl, they go on TikTok, and they will talk about you online, not just with their friends, right? So you want to make sure you're continuously cultivating a positive culture, a positive atmosphere where you are truly setting your employees up to be successful and not setting them up to fail, where you have the kind of environment where a manager can talk to an employee about an area where they might be struggling in and get their performance up to where that needs to be in a way that empowers that employee and doesn't, just ding them and make them feel like crap, right? So when you're consistently focused on that, it helps your employer brand. So job seekers now, and we definitely have a job seekers market, they're researching organizations, right? Because they're getting to pick and choose where they're going to go to work. So they want to know, well, what's the culture going to be like? Is it toxic? What are people saying about this? More than just pay and benefits. They want to know about flexibility. They want to know about management relationships. What's the leadership really like? Do they walk the talk? What are you doing in terms of corporate social responsibility? And so you need to have a good pulse on what it is, understand what it actually is, and then leverage that within the recruiting process. So tailoring your job posts to ensure the language that you're using is reflective of your culture. If you have a more formal culture, you don't want to use more laid back language in your job posting. It sends the wrong impression. If you've got this phenomenal culture where your Glassdoor reviews are 5 stars, link that in your job post. Have testimonials from your employees online, link that as well. You're continuing to leverage this employer brand throughout the recruiting experience to attract them, and then ensuring that you are giving a really good impression that is honest and authentic through the interviewing process as well.
I love that. What you're talking about, I heard this many years ago as a young leader. Success is not pursued; it's attracted, and that's what you're talking about. You're like, hey, show everyone who you are, what you're all about, and they'll want to be a part of that. I love that. Hey, I do want to ask you this, and I don't want to give all of your session away because I know it's going to be exciting. People that are listening, you need to write this down. Employee centric is essential. It's essential. And I know you have a lot you're going to share in your session, but I do want to ask you this question because I do ask leaders on the show often when it comes to success, how do we know, like I love all of this, but how do you know when you're providing a great employee experience? Because a lot of people listening, they're like, we want that. We want to provide that. And, many times we think we have to go in the boardroom and hammer something big out, but sometimes it doesn't have to be big. It can be the little things, right?
Absolutely. So some really important indicators. Number one, are your employees giving you feedback? They have to feel psychologically safe and that you're going to listen to them, really hear them, and that it's not going to just kind of go into the void. If they feel like any sort of fear with giving you any feedback that might be critical or constructive in any manner, or they feel like it's going to fall on deaf ears, they will not bother. And that is a huge indicator that it is not the positive workplace that you might think it to be. Another indicator is that you are retaining them, that they are staying around. Another one is maybe you've got employees that the career path that they're in especially for a smaller organization, there's nowhere else to promote to right now, but you're still retaining them and they're coming to you to ask for professional development opportunities. So instead of looking for, okay, well, I still want to climb up the ladder, I need to look for my next job, they're invested in your organization. They've got really good relationships. They have friendships at work. They have a good working relationship with the boss. And so instead of let me jump ship, I'm going to spend more time here and continue to work on my skills and develop myself. And I want you to be a part of that.
That's fantastic. I love that. I always tell people that your customers are always your best salespeople. And that's not just your external customers, your internal customers, which are your employees, are always your best salespeople. And that's retention. Oh my goodness. This is fantastic. This is going to be so good for people listening. You need to get signed up for the HR Southwest Conference coming to Fort Worth Convention Center, October the 15th through the 18th. Mallory will be there talking about leveraging the employee experience to retain top talent. Hey, I want to ask you, I've enjoyed watching your journey. What drives you, Mallory, to want to speak and really share this message?
I think that HR is such an important role, and we're really the unsung heroes. The power of a job is phenomenal, right? I've personally experienced this. It changes the life of an individual when they are truly set up to be successful, when they have the right work environment, when they're given the tools and resources to succeed, when they're mentored, when they're developed well, when they're managed well. It boosts their self-confidence. So no matter what situation they might be going through, we all have challenges in life. When they've got a workplace that they can go to where we spend the majority of our time at work and they can be successful there, they can make so many strides in their personal life. And that has a huge ripple effect, not only to business success for that company, but also into the community. Because once we are doing well and feeling good, a lot of us then start to give back. And HR is really responsible for the design of that workplace and that experience. So I want to empower other HR leaders to understand how they can best do that and know the impact that they make. And it can be a lonely job, right? And, sometimes people stop talking because they're like, oh, show HR, there they are, be quiet, but we really do truly make a difference, and we need to know that, and I want to help.
I love that so much. That's fantastic. Hey, I want to ask you, and I've been asking different speakers this, when you finish speaking at the conference, your session's over, you've delivered this masterful presentation, you've inspired, you've done all these different things. What are you hoping people will come up to you and share after your session?
Oh, so many things. So any personal issues that they're having in their workplace that I might be able to help them work on, I love to workshop that with them. If they want any further resources that I might be able to share with them, and really what spoke to them. That one's a little more selfish. That one fills me up a little bit when they share how it impacted them. But those are the top three.
Hey, I want to know that feedback too. Like, how did it impact you? You were sharing before, talking about, when people find, I always talk about finding your lane. When they find their lane, they really find true joy. And so you said, I wrote down here, it's all about, helping people change lives, right? And change lives can be in the right environment. And sometimes the right environment, it may not start that way. Maybe HR leaders have a chance to shape that environment to make it the right environment as well. And so I just love all of this. I know at the end of the day, it's all about alignment. When we really have that true alignment, it goes back to learn, network, and grow. We're learning, we're connecting with people, we're growing. It just all comes together. I love all that. Hey, I do like to ask this question around advice from all of my guests because this is another area where I learn. Have you ever been given any advice? It was just so good. You just find yourself sharing with others. It could have been early career, could have been from family, it could have been from a friend, but it's just powerful advice.
Oh, absolutely. So one of the largest lessons I learned, this advice that I was given very early in my career, was to really understand how to align everything you do with overall business strategy and objectives, and to ensure that your team has a very good understanding of where your company is going and how they really fit into that and make a difference within that. That is so critical. And unfortunately, I think that sometimes that's missed.
Mm. Yeah, that's fantastic. I appreciate you sharing that. Hey, I do want to ask you before we shift to it's time to accelerate about the college students and your volunteer role. First of all, what drives you to volunteer? What do you enjoy most about volunteering at the conference?
So I just love to do volunteer work. Volunteering at the conference, I mean, there's so much that goes into that conference that you have to have so many volunteers to make it run as smoothly as it does. So just to be able to be a part of that and to give back to that community, that's an honor to me. Anything that I can do is, I feel like what a tremendous gift I'm given to be able to be a part of it and to give back.
Yeah, and I also want to ask you about the students. I want to ask you this question. There may be some students that are listening to the podcast right now, and they're tuned in and they're excited, but yet maybe they're even a little nervous because they don't know anyone. They maybe they know a couple of their friends that are going, which always helps. Talk a little bit about, maybe something that you've seen or maybe something that helped you navigate attending. You probably can remember your first conference you attended and maybe not knowing very many people. Talk a little bit about maybe a couple of tips on what students might, expect, and maybe a tip on something they can do to navigate through this huge conference of people.
Sure. Yeah, it can be very overwhelming, more so for a student, I would assume. However, we keep that in mind. And so we have a welcome session for
Mm,
students
okay.
so that they will get to meet other students, and all of the volunteers from the Student Engagement Committee of Dallas HR. We stay on the lookout for those students. And when we see them, we say hello, we buddy up with them, we help them determine if they don't already know, well, which sessions should I go to, because there's so many to choose from, right? It's so hard to pick because you want to go to them all. We'll talk with them about, well, what are your goals as far as what you want to learn here, and we'll help them with that. But we'll make sure that they aren't alone through this conference. We'll also help them with networking. So what I've done in the past too is, with students, taking them and introducing them to these
Mm,
amazing HR professionals that I know that I think would benefit them, and helping them. And I think first day of the conference, they can, it's a little more overwhelming. You're a little more timid, right? But by that second day, you've already been immersed in this
mm.
environment. Oh, they've got it. These students are amazing.
They are rolling, man. Okay, so you heard it. Find Mallory, and she's going to introduce you to some people at the conference. I just love that. I love that. Hey, I do want to ask you this question because I take notes during our conversation here, and I have a word here that I'd circled, and I want to ask you this before we shift here. And the word that's circled is purpose. And I always talk about finding your lane, right? When you find your lane, you find real joy, you find that purpose, your calling. For you, I mean, you talked a little bit about your personal upbringing, and then here you are. You're running a company, you're speaking, you're volunteering, you're doing all these amazing things. So excited to see you at the conference coming up. Um, Talk about, like, was there a moment when you said, I found my true joy? Or do you think there were moments leading up to that? Talk about purpose.
Oh, there's absolutely a moment. So back in that first job I had, where I was kind of put into HR, having no clue
Mhm.
what I was doing, that place allowed me to better my own situation, allowed me to get out of an abusive relationship, to stand on my own 2 feet. And I realized that we were doing that for the others that we hired too, because unlike many other employers, we were okay with second chance hires and your more untraditional individuals, and giving people an opportunity to learn the skills instead of necessarily, requiring that you must already come in the door with X amount of years, right? And giving them a career path and opportunities. And when it clicked for me that not only was this clearly making a positive impact on the bottom line for the company, but making this huge impact in our workforce because of the feedback I was getting. I had experienced it firsthand, but I would have employees come to me and tell me about the progress that they were making in their personal lives and how much that meant to them. And it was so touching. And I realized this is the power of HR. So once I had that experience, I realized this is what I want to do.
I love it. You're in your lane. You're in
Yeah.
your lane. The power of HR. I love that. This has been so much fun talking about the HR Southwest Conference coming to Fort Worth, Texas, October the 15th through the 18th at the Fort Worth Convention Center. I'm going to put the links in the show notes. You want to get registered. By the way, if you register before June the 30th, I believe you can get best pricing. But not just register, find a friend, have them register too. It's going to be one of the biggest conferences of the year, and I'm so excited about that. Hey, Mallory, I want to shift to a fun part that I like to do. It's called "It's Time to Accelerate," and I was thinking back. I want to ask you what your favorite conference memory is, but I was thinking back. There was several years ago when I was doing some videos at the conference, and I was asking different people this question. But I want to ask you, what's your favorite conference memory?
Oh man, I have so many good memories. I love this conference so much. It is so worth it. Everyone should go. There was a particular keynote, and it was a gentleman that was a pianist, and I believe
His name is John O'Leary.
yes. Oh, I was moved to tears
Mm,
by his talk, and then he graced us with the beautiful music that he played, and I
yeah.
found it so inspirational. And every time I go to a keynote, really, I get inspired and
Mm.
motivated and jazzed up, and I feel like it's such a way to just start off that conference with a bang, and then we have another one to end the conference, and it fills me up.
Fantastic. Yeah. John O'Leary, he wrote the book On Fire, and he was, as a young boy, he was burned trying to do something with a gasoline can. And yes, very inspirational story. He's fantastic. I'm with you on that. When I hear speakers, it just fills me up. It validates things I'm doing. It makes me think about things maybe I need to start doing, all of these different things. But most importantly, it gives us common language throughout the conference to talk to each other at the conference saying, hey, what'd you think about Morris Morrison? Love, love, love all of that. And I appreciate you sharing that. He's one of my favorites too. Hey, I want to ask you this. What energizes you during the conference? Because you're doing a lot of stuff. I mean, you're volunteering, you're speaking, that can wear you out. What energizes you?
Sure. Well, and I attend sessions too when I
And
can.
you attend
Um,
sessions.
gosh, there's such a buzzing within the conference, like this energy with all of these professionals, the chance that we get to connect
Mm,
and to learn together and to go to the marketplace and play with puppies together and and to really talk about, we don't always get an opportunity to talk about the challenges that we're facing.
yeah.
And I see that happening so much over lunches or when people get together and meet each other for the first time, but then they make plans that they go out to dinner together. It's really that connection, that energy of the conference and the connection everyone is making. That just it it is so almost magical. I love it. It's palpable. You can feel it. And it's one of my absolute favorite things to be a part of, and really energizes me. It's one of the things I look forward to most about the conference.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I get energized by the connections as well. And I cannot wait for that. Hey, I have one final question for you, Mallory. And probably one of my favorite questions I ask all of my guests. Mallory, 10 years older, is around the corner and she's knocking at your door, and you're going to go answer that door. What's she going to tell you?
She's going to tell me to keep doing what I'm doing, but knock it off with that imposter syndrome, because you've got this, girl.
I like that. That's a wise 10 years older Mallory Herrin. She's going to be speaking at the HR Southwest Conference. Get registered for the conference at HRSouthwest.com and be sure and attend Mallory's session. You're going to enjoy it. Also, pick up a copy of her book, Intentional HR. I'll put the link in the show notes. Hey, I appreciate you so much for coming on to the show today and sharing some insights to your session. Hey, if someone heard something today and they said, hey, I want to connect with Mallory, how's the best way for them to connect?
You can always connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can even email me at info@HerrinHR.com. Please feel free to reach out.
Perfect. I will put that link in the show notes so you can email directly. And when you reach out to Mallory, be sure and let her know, hey, I heard you on Life in the Leadership Lane and you said this, and this was impactful for me. And again, I appreciate you coming on the show. I can't wait to see you speak at the HR Southwest Conference coming to Fort Worth, October the 15th through the 18th. It's going to be fantastic. It's all about learning, networking, and growing. And for you, I say thank you for sharing your wisdom, your perspective, and most importantly, I appreciate your friendship, Mallory.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate your friendship, and thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. I can't wait to share this. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Have a good one.